Welcome back to our Facebook Live coverage of From Your Election Authority of the midterms 2022. As you can see, we've known by now that actually it was declared a little bit after 8 o'clock tonight that our next governor is Maura Healey. And Paul Robbins, as I look down the results right now, it's as you predicted, a Democratic sweep statewide. So no surprise.
Why did you even hold the election, right?
Exactly. Well, I think a lot of people felt that way too.
Yeah, the other thing is I think we're so polarized now. I think people might have just bullet voted right down the. I mean, there are variations from different races, but there is a sense that kind of the Trump, version of the Republican Party in Massachusetts started filling those constitutional offices. Listen, Scott Brown won a Senate race here in Massachusetts. That seems like a century ago, right?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
I mean, he lost eventually, but
BT
that
before
happened.
Trump, yeah.
Right, yeah. And so, but I think people went out with a mission that they're just going to bullet the Democratic, because we've had a long history of Republicans winning the governorship.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of interesting to see, how that happens, how it figures itself out with all Democrats under the dome.
4 years of the Healey administration now, and as you look at this, and we look at the state of the Republican Party in Massachusetts, it's like, where do they go? Charlie Baker is not a player anymore, although, I mean, he did endorse Deal for governor.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So if you are opposed to, let's say the folks who are really opposed to the Trumper version of the Republican Party, I happen to know someone who's running for office as a Republican who says to me that even though he's moderate on a lot of things, he handed a campaign card to someone who threw it away because he said you have an R next to the name. Yeah. Now, fortunately, that person ended up engaged in a conversation. That's not really happening now. People see the R or the D and say, that's it. It works on both ways. But in Massachusetts, I think they're going to have some rediscovery. And I think Trumpism is going to have to come and go. And who knows how long that's going to be.
Sure.
We're going to be in a permanent campaign here, and then he's going to run likely again. He's going to have winners tonight around the country. Massachusetts is definitely going to have to reinvent what it means to be a Republican.
Well, I guess the question with that is here we are in Massachusetts, and you're dealing with people all across the country every single day. Are we out of touch with what's going on in the rest of the country?
We're kind of an outlier.
Yeah.
Think about it. In New York, there's a question of whether the sitting governor, who was way ahead, can pull that off tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know what the reports are saying tonight there, but they brought in some heavy hitters. I think they brought in Jill Biden. I think Hillary Clinton. We're getting further and further away. But I'll still emphasize that the vast majority, or not maybe vast, but the simple majority of people still are somewhere in that middle, and they lean one way or the other. But the polarization kind of forces you into one of those camps. That's the thing. And with an issue like crime, right? That's the interesting thing. Gavin Newsom tweeted the other day that actually crime is up in the red states, and it's not in the blue states. Doesn't matter. We're all getting parked into these divisions. So that is going to be a problem for Republicans to try to reinvent themselves. Will they find somebody that can get to the corner office? It's not going to be as easy. No. Next time.
I mean, no up-and-comers. I mean, we think back to the day here in Massachusetts with Joe Malone as treasurer, and Bill Weld and Paul Cellucci. You don't hear of many Republicans in the pipeline. And one of the things we talked about before is whether it's Republican or Democrat outside of the governor's race, nobody knew who these candidates were.
No, and there's the old adage: you have to kind of buy name recognition. Eric Lesser is a perfect example.
Yeah.
He raised north of $1 million, which is incredible, right? Particularly for someone from Western Massachusetts. And he lost. And I will almost guarantee you he never achieved the kind of name recognition statewide that he needed. So you have to spend at least $1 million to get someone to know you. Never mind, then spend another $1 million, tell them what you're for and against. Oh, and by the way, you have a D or an R next to your name.
Sure.
If it's an R, it's going to be a problem in Massachusetts.
As we look at this too, it's like, are we ever going to, I call it the hamster wheel, that it would just keep going and going and going, but nobody's getting off to work on anything. So now we look ahead to, the Republicans taking control of the House and likely the Senate, working probably against a Democratic president. It's like, Well, here we are stuck in the middle again, and nothing, are we looking at another 2 years where nothing gets done?
Yep. We talked earlier about these pendulum elections. The voters are frustrated with the system.
Yeah.
And the system means a lot of things. It doesn't mean Republican or Democratic. I think I said this to you some time ago. When Jerry Brown from California ran for president, a long time ago, I think in the Dukakis race we were talking off air about, he said the problem with Washington isn't that there's a Democratic Party or a Republican Party. Yeah. There's an incumbent party. And so people push away the incumbents. So how is it possible, right, that someone who voted for Obama could vote for Trump? Because they want to see stuff done. It doesn't get done. They get more frustrated with the system. You throw the fuel of social media and disinformation and election denialism, people splitting into camps there, it becomes a mess to try to get into a middle ground.
And you look back at that 2016 election, I've always looked at that saying they weren't necessarily voting for Donald Trump. They may have been voting against Hillary Clinton, or they were voting for change. And it doesn't seem like the rest of the country is, at least on Capitol Hill, has understood that people want change.
I will almost guarantee you there's someone that voted for Bernie Sanders who ended up voting for Donald Trump. Because they see what's wrong with the system. And if you look at the presidency, we almost elect someone from the outside that says Washington's a mess. Ronald Reagan did that. Jimmy Carter did that. Yeah. Bill Clinton was an outsider. Barack Obama was an outsider. Biggest outsider of them all, except he's an insider at the same time, Donald Trump.
Yep.
So people want to see that middle place, and it doesn't exist anymore.
All right, Paul, we're going to break off of Facebook now, but we are going to be back with more on Western Mass News at 10 on Fox 6 and on Western Mass News at 11 on ABC 40 and CBS 3. And of course, the latest results, real-time results on westernmassnews.com or the Western Mass News app. We'll see you on the news at 10 o'clock.